Non-compliance risks. Customs regulations overview. Welcome to our video on what steps should be taken to avoid the consequences of non-compliance with customs regulations. In this video, we'll discuss the different types of customs regulations, the consequences of non-compliance, and the steps you can take to ensure that you're compliant. We'll also provide some tips on how to deal with customs officials if you're ever audited or questioned. Types of customs regulations. Import duties. These are taxes that are levied on goods that are imported into a country. The amount of duty that is charged depends on the type of goods, their value, and the country from which they're imported. Export duties. These are taxes that are levied on goods that are exported from a country. The amount of duty that is charged depends on the type of goods, their value, and the country to which they're exported. Quotas. These are limits on the amount of goods that can be imported or exported from a country. Quotas can be used to protect domestic industries from foreign competition. Sanctions. These are trade restrictions that are imposed on a country in order to punish it for its actions. Sanctions can include restrictions on imports, exports, or both. Consequences of non-compliance. Fines. You could be fined for failing to pay import or export duties, or for violating quotas or sanctions. Seizure of goods. Your goods could be seized by customs officials if you fail to provide the required documentation or if you're caught trying to smuggle goods into or out of the country. Criminal prosecution. In some cases, non-compliance with customs regulations could lead to criminal prosecution. There are a number of steps you can take to avoid the consequences of non-compliance with customs regulations, including: research the customs regulations of the countries you're importing or exporting to. Make sure you're aware of the different types of duties, quotas, and sanctions that apply to the goods you're importing or exporting. Get the required permits and licenses. In some cases, you may need to obtain permits or licenses in order to import or export certain goods. Provide the required documentation. Make sure you provide customs officials with all of the required documentation, such as invoices, bills of lading, and certificates of origin. Declare all of your goods. When you're clearing customs, you must declare all of the goods that you're importing or exporting. Be honest with customs officials. If you're ever questioned by customs officials, be honest with them. Lying to customs officials could lead to serious consequences. If you're ever audited or questioned by customs officials, there are a few things you can do to make the process go more smoothly. Be polite and respectful. Customs officials are just doing their job, so it's important to be polite and respectful to them. Be prepared. Make sure you have all of the required documentation and that you're familiar with the customs regulations. Be honest. If you're ever questioned by customs officials, be honest with them. Lying to customs officials could lead to serious consequences. By following these tips, you can help to avoid the consequences of non-compliance with customs regulations. By doing your research, getting the required permits and licenses, providing the required documentation, declaring all of your goods, and being honest with customs officials, you can help to ensure that your goods are cleared smoothly and efficiently.